Across the sun-scorched vastness of Australia, millions of goats roam wild, meticulously husbanded to feed a hungry global market. From these sweeping, open range herds, Australian graziers have forged a unique livestock empire, fusing primal grazing with cutting-edge technology. Every animal's odyssey from birth to butcher is executed with calculated precision and control. Current estimates suggest the Earth teems with over 900 million goats, thriving mostly in the dust of arid and semi-arid zones. India dominates, boasting a staggering 150 million head, claiming the lion's share of the global population. China follows close behind with over 130 million, reared in the countryside for meat, milk, and hides. In Africa, Nigeria is home to some 88 million goats. Pakistan shepherds around 82.5 million, while Bangladesh tends to nearly 60 million. Yet, against these titans of production, Australia doesn't even rank among the nations with the largest herds. But Australia's power lies not in sheer headcount, but in the mastery of commercial farming, collection, and processing to deliver premium meat to the world stage. In the span of 2024 alone, Australia processed some 3.4 million animals, yielding over 119 million pounds of produce. This nation commanded roughly 55% of global meat exports, steadfastly defending its crown as the planet's unrivaled goat meat exporter. Blessed with the dry climate, limitless rangelands, and sophisticated management systems, goats flourish in terrain where frailer livestock would perish. For thousands of Australian farmers, this is more than a livelihood. It is the alchemy of turning brutal landscapes into enduring economic gold. In regions like New South Wales, Queensland, and South Australia, herds roam properties, stretching thousands of acres, where vegetation is sparse and the soil rejects the plow. Here, goats live essentially wild, foraging for scrub, brush, and water by their own instinct. Shunning the confinement of barns, farmers erect vast perimeter fences around the range. They patrol these frontiers, tallying the herd and monitoring vitality. They harvest only those at peak market weight. This strategy slashes feed costs, exploits marginal lands, and thrives in the remote outback, far from the pulse of cities. The supply chain begins with genetic selection. Graziers favor superior meat breeds, like the Boer and Kalahari Red, or crossbreeds engineered for rapid bulk, robust flesh, and resilience in a hostile climate. Breeding stock is chosen for structural symmetry, sturdy limbs, sleek coats, immunity, and reproductive prowess. A single elite buck can service 30 to 40 dozen one season. When breeding season arrives, farmers call for prime health and body condition, ensuring full vaccination, energy-dense feed, and minerals are supplemented to fortify them for conception. On average, a doe's gestation spans roughly 150 days, or about 5 months. The mother's vitality dictates the destiny of her offspring. Expectant mothers graze natural pastures, bolstered by mineral additives. Pristine water must always flow, as dehydration stunts appetite and sabotages fetal growth. Maternity shelters must be arid, ventilated, and shielded from the elements. In regions of climatic extremes, simple shade structures are erected. Does are scrutinized for distress signals, loss of hunger, labored movement, or wasting. At kidding, most does deliver 1 or 2 offspring, with twins common and triplets occasional. On many Australian ranges, twinning rates soar between 40 and 50%, a benchmark of exceptional reproductive success. Newborns stand and suckle within mere hours of entering the world. In that critical first day, they must ingest colostrum to forge their immunity. If the mother's milk fails, farmers intervene with replacer to sustain the fragile life. For the first few weeks, kids depend entirely on maternal milk. Pens are kept immaculate, dry, and lined with straw to trap vital warmth. Stable temperatures and wind protection are paramount, as the young are perilously sensitive to the damp and cold. Negligence at this stage can spike mortality rates to 10%. By the 3rd or 4th week, they begin nibbling tender shoots, soft leaves, and supplements, though milk remains their lifeline. At 3 months old, kids typically weigh between 18 and 33 pounds, dictated by breed and care. This remains a delicate phase. Thus, vaccinations continue, alongside deworming and strict weight checks. The weak are segregated for intensive rehabilitation. Rearing is the cornerstone of the entire production cycle. Vigorous, rapid growth kids are destined for premium meat or breeding excellence. Under skilled watch, Australian farms suppress losses below 5%, a standard envied by the world. As they mature, they are sorted as replacement stock or meat. Herds are age-segregated for streamlined control. Native pasture remains the nutritional backbone, supplemented by browse, like hardy shrubs and wild flora. Farmers may introduce grain, commercial mixes, or agricultural byproducts to accelerate mass gain. An adult goat devours roughly 4.5 to 9 pounds of green forage daily. Fresh water is non-negotiable, as scarcity throttles intake and stunts growth. Mineral salts and vitamins are dispensed to armor the immune system and skeleton. But herd management is the fulcrum. upon which efficiency turns. On vast Australian stations, goats carry electronic ear tags, from youth, each bearing a unique digital identity, synced to central software. A simple scan reveals the animal's entire history: weight, vaccination, lineage, and health status. Rigorous health inspections are routine. Any creature showing sickness is quarantined instantly to halt contagion. Through this iron discipline, mortality is consistently pinned below that 5% threshold. Because herds drift across colossal territories, some spanning thousands of acres, farmers cannot rely on foot patrols alone. They deploy ATVs to traverse the rugged zones, and working dogs to muster the flock. On the plains, horses are still the mount of choice for long range. On the grandest operations, drones act as eyes in the sky, spotting strays, trapped beasts, or erratic behavior. Occasionally, helicopters are summoned to rapidly survey the vast wilderness. Yet, this rugged frontier demands a heavy price. The arch enemy is the extreme weather. Goat country is unforgivingly arid, where rain is a rare blessing. Prolonged droughts bake the pasture and drain the wells, forcing farmers to truck in costly feed from afar, or face the heartbreak of destocking. Nature's predators also lurk. Wild dogs, kangaroos, and feral pests menace the herd, targeting the vulnerable newborns. Furthermore, feral goats infiltrating the flock bring disease and genetic chaos, making impenetrable fencing and vigilance absolutely vital. Meat goats are typically sold upon reaching 55 to 77 pounds, usually at the tender age of 6 to 9 months. At this peak, the meat is succulent, lean, and superior. Holding them longer invites diminishing returns and wasted feed, severing the economic logic. So the sale is timed to perfection. Before the end, goats are mustered in collection yards for grading and inspection. They are loaded into specialized transporters, ventilated and spaced to suppress stress. To minimize stress, a single rig carries 100 to 300 animals, depending on their bulk. Routes are plotted meticulously to ensure speed and preserve the condition of the cargo. Processing is conducted with humane protocols to minimize suffering. Post-slaughter, carcasses are dressed, cleansed, and flash-chilled to lock in freshness. The average dressed carcass yields about 33 to 37 pounds. Every step in Australian facilities adheres to rigorous food safety and animal welfare codes. Graded by size and caliber. Some meat serves the domestic table, but the vast majority sails overseas. From fresh cuts to frozen blocks, diced morsels, mince, and sausages, all are packaged under sterile standards. Indeed, 90% of Australia's production is destined for export. The US is the hungriest customer, devouring 60% of shipments, followed by the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. Frozen and secure, the meat traverses the globe. Goat farming injects vital wealth into the Australian interior, reviving parched regions where crops invariably fail. It monetizes the wild scrub and generates rural employment, while the goats act as biological agents, controlling invasive weeds and reducing the fuel for wildfires. They rehabilitate the land, clearing the way for grass to return. From pregnant does traversing endless horizons to kids raised under watchful eyes, culminating in sustenance for millions across the planet. This industry is a triumph of complexity and grit. Through scientific husbandry, strict governance, and modern processing, Australia has cemented its place as a global titan, transforming a harsh wilderness into a sustainable economic powerhouse. If these tales of resilience captivate you, follow along for more unique livestock stories from the corners of the earth. Have you ever wondered where the cheapest, most ubiquitous source of protein in America comes from? The answer is chicken. On average, every American consumes over 100 pounds of chicken and nearly 273 eggs annually. To satiate such colossal hunger at rock-bottom prices, farmers must operate on a scale unseen in human history. So, how do they raise millions of birds simultaneously while battling disease and controlling costs? The United States stands as the supreme producer of broiler chickens, commanding a flock of over 514 million. To run such a massive engine, the industry has constructed a system of extreme industrialization, optimized from the moment the egg cracks until the bird meets the processing blade. It begins with the meticulous culling of eggs. Only the flawless enter the incubator. Here, they bake for 21 days, at a precise 100 degrees Fahrenheit, constantly rotated, to engineer uniform embryonic growth. When the chicks emerge, they do not feel the soil of a farm. First, they are scanned, vaccinated, a mandatory shield against the contagion risks inherent in crowding. Those that pass have their beaks trimmed via infrared laser to curb aggressive pecking. Those that fail the standard are discarded. The survivors are shipped to rearing houses for fattening. A single shed holds up to 40,000 souls, confined indoors for their entire existence. They never see the sun. The living allowance for each bird shrinks to a mere square foot or so. Temperatures are kept artificially high, so the birds waste no metabolic energy staying warm. Instead, every calorie is channeled into flesh. Even the cycle of day and night is manipulated, with extended light, compelling them to eat without pause. Their diet is a potent mix of corn and soy, blended into high-efficiency pellets. In its brief life, a broiler consumes about 8 to 11 pounds of feed, in a sprint towards obesity. The goal is to hit a commercial weight of 4.4 to 6.6 pounds with blistering speed, in the shortest time possible. In just 6 weeks, the broiler is ready for harvest, an unnatural acceleration compared to the 20 weeks required by nature. But beneath this growth lies a complex web of power. Most are raised under contract farming models, where corporations monopolize the high profit, low-risk elements. They reap the windfall while the farmers, laboring in the sheds, bear the debt and slim margins. This industrial behemoth scars the environment deeply. Mega farms churn out mountains of manure and toxic litter, accumulating tons daily. Conveyor belts run ceaselessly to purge the waste. Some is spread on fields as fertilizer, but in excess, rain washes the nitrates into waterways, poisoning streams and suffocating aquatic ecosystems and water sources. Despite the controversy, the sheer magnitude of profit ensures the poultry giants tighten their grip on this model. Once they leave the farm, a colossal industrial engine seizes the flock. Across the U.S., 2,979 federally inspected plants await, inspected under federal standards. Daily, 202 million chickens meet their end. More than 140,000 lives extinguished every single minute. Here, velocity is the only god. The sequence begins with scalding and boiling vats, followed by mechanical plucking that strips feathers in 30 ruthless seconds. Heads are severed, and organs eviscerated with robotic precision. The carcasses are submerged in chilled brine for 3 minutes to purge bacteria and sanitize the meat. Workers then dismantle the body into thighs, wings, and breasts. Finally, the cuts are inspected, packaged, and dispatched to the market. It is a closed, continuous loop, unyielding and ceaseless. At the retail counter, boneless breast reigns supreme in the American diet, trailed by wings and thighs. Forecasts predict US production will swell to 48 billion pounds by 2026, proving that the appetite for chicken is insatiable, despite the overwhelming scale. If the poultry industry is a titan, broilers are merely the muscle. The egg-laying hens are its silent, tirelessly beating heart. By 2025, the US housed over 296 million commercial layers. More than half endure life in battery cages, where their world is dictated by computer algorithms. Here, humidity, heat, and light are engineered to trigger ovulation. Artificial daylight simulates a 15-hour sun, hacking the bird's biological clock. The diet is chemically precise. Unlike broilers, layers are fed mash to prolong feeding and curb obesity, for a fat hen lays fewer eggs. It is a regime of total control. Yet, a tide creates change. Consumers are increasingly revolting against the battery cage, decrying it as institutionalized cruelty. Thus, pasture-raised, or free-range, models are seizing ground. Here, birds are released into the dawn, free to forage for insects and reclaim their natural heritage. Nesting in simple boxes. Projections suggest that by late 2026, 26% of us hens will live this way. Driven by the demand for a more ethical breakfast. But regardless of the cage, biology sets the ultimate limit. Laying begins at 19 weeks, capped at 1 egg per day. The miracle of forming yolk, white, and shell requires a full 24 to 26 hours. Still, a mega farm churns out 1.8 million eggs weekly. But this productivity is finite. The commercial life of a hen expires after about 96 weeks. Before 2 years pass, they are culled to clear the cages for fresh stock, maintaining the relentless flow. Once laid, the egg enters an automated highway. This system maximizes speed and slashes labor, keeping breakage below a microscopic 0.1%, an extremely low figure in industrial production. rolling from the cave. Eggs join a main artery, a vast belt, flowing directly into the packing heart of the facility. Simultaneously, waste drops away on separate tracks, never touching the product. Hygiene is engineered into the geometry. In the washing bays, eggs endure a scrub of soap and disinfectant at 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Instantly, they pass through a dryer for exactly 5 seconds of evaporation. Moisture is the enemy. However, this scrubbing strips the shell's natural cuticle, its biological shield. Therefore, refrigeration becomes mandatory to halt bacterial invasion. Next comes the grading blitz, where the pace is staggering. The machines handle 144,000 eggs per hour. Electronic eyes and human hands remove the cracked and dirty. Candling lights pierce the shell, exposing any internal imperfections. Internal defects. They are weighed and sorted. Small, medium, large, or extra large. Finally, robots gently seat them into cartons. Large end up to center the yolk, stamped with a lot code and expiration date. They exit the line, ready for the world. Efficiency is absolute. But the imperfect eggs, the cracked or misshapen, are not discarded. Nothing is wasted. Instead, they are diverted to liquid processing plants. Here, machines crack shells and separate yolks with a voracious capacity of 2 million a day, and separate the yolks and whites. The scale is industrial and unrelenting. Whisked in giant vats. The liquid gold is pasteurized, sterilized by heat to vanquish salmonella. Safety is paramount. Cooled and bagged in bulk for industrial kitchens. This liquid becomes the invisible foundation of our food, mayonnaise, cakes, and dressings. It is the hidden ingredient of the modern diet. The US poultry machine runs not on sentiment, but on cold metrics, velocity, and ruthlessness. But as the machine gloats, we must ask not just what can be produced, but what we are willing to countenance. Between economic hunger, animal welfare, and the scarred earth, where does the balance lie? For an industry that cannot stop, has American efficiency gone too far, or is it a necessary evil? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If this insight was valuable, remember to like and subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell, so you never miss our future explorations into agriculture's massive scale.